Hi children, how are you? Today we are going to discuss about our next lesson, reproduction in plants. We already studied in the last class, sexual reproduction in plants. We know that the flower is the reproductive part of a plant. The flower consists of male reproductive organ and female reproductive organ, that is stamen and pistil. The stamen have anther and filament. Pistil consists of style, stigma and ovary. Anther have pollen grains, that is a male gamete. And pistil have ovary. Ovary consists of ovule. Ovule is a female gamete. And male gamete and female gamete together to form zygote or embryo. Some of the flowers which contain only one reproductive part, that is stamen or pistil, is called a unisexual flower. And some of the flowers which contain both stamen and pistil, called a bisexual flower. The fusion of male and female gamete is called fertilization. What is fertilization? We already studied the fusion of male gamete and female gamete together to form zygote. And the process is called fertilization. What is called? Fertilization. What is fertilization? The process of fusion of male and female gamete is called fertilization. After fertilization develops a zygote or embryo. The next one is pollination. What is pollination? The transfer of anther from stamen to the stigma of the pistil is called pollination. Pollination is a process by which the transfer of pollen grains, from anther to the stigma of a flower is called pollination. We know that the pollen grains are present in anther. Anther is the part of stamen. Stamen is the male reproductive part. The stamen consists of anther and filament. Anther have pollen grains, that is male gamete. The transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of a flower. Stigma is a part of female reproductive organ, that is pistil. Pistil consists of style, stigma, ovary. The transfer of pollen grains from anther to the stigma of a flower is called pollination. Do you understand? What is pollination? The transfer of pollen grains from anther to the stigma of a flower is called pollination. Can you follow me, dear children? Okay. There are two types of pollination. Self-pollination and cross-pollination. There are two types of pollination. Self-pollination and cross-pollination. What is self-pollination? The transfer of pollen grains from anther to the stigma of a same flower is called self-pollination. The transfer of pollen grains from anther to the stigma of a same flower is called self-pollination. What is cross-pollination? The transfer of pollen grains from anther to the stigma of the another flower or another plant is called cross-pollination. Okay, two types of pollination, self-pollination and cross-pollination. Pollination is the process by which transfer of pollen grains from anther to the stigma of the flower. Two types of pollination. First one, self-pollination. The transfer of pollen grains from anther to the stigma of the same flower is called self-pollination. Then, what is cross-pollination? The transfer of pollen grains from anther to the stigma of the another flower of the same plant or another plant is called cross-pollination. Okay. So the fertilization is the process of fusion of male and female gamete and together to form a zygote. An ovary produces a fruit. After fertilization, our ovary develops a fruit. After fertilization, an ovary develops into fruit and the seeds are developed from ovule. The seeds are developed from ovule. Next one, dispersion of seeds. What is dispersion? Lower class you learned, no? Dispersion. 5th class or 6th class you learned dispersion. The scattering of seeds far away from the mother plant is called dispersion. What is dispersion? The scattering of seeds far away from the mother plant is called dispersion. Example animals. Then water, wind are the agents of dispersion. Wind, water and animals are the agents of dispersion. Coconut is dispersed by water. Then madar plant, it is the dispersion by wind. Then mango, dispersion by animals. What is dispersion? The scattering of seeds far away from the mother plant is called dispersion. Some seeds are dispersed by animals, some of them are dispersed by wind and water. Okay dear children, our lesson is over. In this lesson we studied about 2 types of reproduction, asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. Vegetative propagation is type of asexual reproduction. And the sexual reproduction is a fusion of male and female gamete. The flower is a reproductive part of a plant. The flower consists of male reproductive part stamen and female reproductive part pistil. And some of the flowers contain both stamen and pistil, that is bisexual flower. Some of the flowers contain only either pistil or stamen. It's called a unisexual flower. Then pollination. What is pollination? The transfer of pollen grains from anther to the stigma of the flower is called pollination. 2 types of pollination, self-pollination and cross-pollination. The last we studied dispersion. Scattering of seeds far away from the mother plant is called dispersion. Okay dear children, everybody should read the textbook carefully and study well. Take care. Thank you children.